Jen, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, could you please give a quick introduction to yourself?
Sure. I'm Jenny Shaw-Sweet, or Jen or Jennifer, as we were laughing about in the corridor. I really don't care what I'm called. I'm the EMEA lead at the B2B Institute at LinkedIn, and I've worked there for about nearly 6 years since it started. And I have worked in advertising and marketing before that for about 20 years. And I'm just a humble country girl who ended up in the city. But I've lived in a few different countries. I've really enjoyed quite an international life. And I like advertising and marketing. I find it creative and sensible all at the same time.
Which is good, because in a parallel universe, you're a lawyer somewhere.
Yeah.
What was the turning point when you were like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. Marketing looks quite good.
I always had a side hustle. This is a terrible confession. I had quite a naughty side hustle, which was I was a comedy producer and theatre producer on the side. So started off at university doing kind of very amateur productions. It very quickly escalated to professional productions where actors were paid and budgets became very serious. And the perfect marriage between theatre and unfortunately losing a lot of money all the time, or at least risking huge amounts, and law seemed to be this kind of commercial creativity, which is marketing and advertising. And so when I dropped out of law, realising that if I carried on doing this, I was going to have a really grim 20s, 30s, 40s, and the lifestyle of it looked so stressful. Everyone I met looked 15 years older than they were. And then I met and I loved all my sort of, the sort of creativity of all my theatre friends, but I didn't think at the time I could face that level of poverty. I didn't have like the bank of mum and dad to cash in on. And so I ended up sort of very briefly on a grad scheme at one agency, and then I got poached off the grad scheme actually to the global grad scheme at McCann Erickson by my wonderful mentor, Ian Helstrip. And Ian sort of took me aside and sort of, young girl, let me just sort of cigar in mouth, let me take you into be an account executive and I'll teach you the ropes. And it was amazing to have Ian and John Fowler, who was a planner, both of them at McCann's, as these incredible mentors who just showed me what a career in advertising and marketing could look like. In particular, because they took out time to send me to all of the sister agencies within McCann. So I had a placement in the media agency, in a very early digital agency called Syzygy, in MRM. And so I got like to just really be given almost the luxury of 2 years to experience that, working across big global brands and making ads. And once you've had that, they also gave me a corner office in my first 3 months with a balcony and a PA. So I think once I'd had that, I was like, I'm staying. And then we were talking about before, the sort of the sort of appeal of just walking into the agency and there's a free breakfast. It kind of meant that even though I'd always blown my wage packet by about day 3 of the month after my rent had gone, I could live on 20 quid for the rest of the month and free breakfast. And
Put
that was
some stuff in your bag for lunch and dinner later and everything.
Or curly meeting room sandwiches. But it was pretty much how I managed to sort of exist in my 20s, because there was this like incredible lifestyle of advertising. It was very hard to let go of once you've experienced the intensity of it, the creativity of it, and then also just the brilliant minds that you get to talk to, share, develop ideas with. The passion about ideas. I don't think there's any other industry where we all kind of obsess over an idea, just a concept of something, in a way that also makes sense commercially. Like you can also see it, expanding or exploding across a very kind of real scene. Like you actually get to see products and things being sold on the basis of like an emotional concept.
Your journey took you from agency life into now the B2B Institute and LinkedIn. Can you tell us the journey from where you were to there, and also if there was any thoughts or considerations in your head of like, because people get excited, they want to go and I can change this industry or I can change this business, but there could always be that nagging doubt, like maybe it just doesn't want to change. So was there any thoughts like that, being like, oh, going into B2B, it could be a bit dry, it could be a bit dull, or I'm really going to make this what B2C's been for years?
So the transition happened really out of a sort of sense of exploration rather than intention, of like, oh, I'll find out about this. This sounds really weird and interesting. So I got a call from Jan Schwartz, who had been I'd been recommended to him, I think over a dinner or something. So I got a call from him after, I think, clicking on something on LinkedIn. And then, you know, he'd checked me out and sort of, he was like, well, I'm looking at quite a few people for this job. Can you come in and interview for it? And I sent him my CV, and he was sort of reviewing that. And then I went in for the interview and I didn't get the job. And then they were recruiting again for a different job, and I went in for that. And
Did they give you a heads up, or were you interested by what they told you in the first interview?
I was so interested, but I then kind of connected with Jan, and I was like, you know, if something comes up, can you let me know? And then I saw it come up before he let me know, and I was like, oh, I'm really interested in this job. I'd like to come in and interview for it. Bless him, he was like, yeah, okay, have a go. He probably said it a bit more eloquently than that, actually, because he's always sort of quite well prepared on everything. But I went in for an interview, and then I had another interview, and then I had about 6 and 7 interviews, because it's tech. So there are about 8 people that need to approve whether you're part of the culture, whether you're, you know, all of the fit. I then had to write a semi-academic paper for the team to prove that I was like kind of the caliber of the team. And I wrote that, which I think was about mental models at the time.
What was it they told you about it that interested you to go back a second time?
It was that they were putting together a team to research and look at marketing and advertising and how it worked. And it didn't have a name. And it sort of sounded a little bit like the A-Team. And I'd been a big fan of that as a child.
Yeah.
And everyone I met was so interesting, intelligent, and nice.
Okay.
And uniquely themselves, quirky, properly quirky as a person. And I just thought, gosh, I feel like I would fit really well in here. Like, this is, everyone's beautifully odd, and also everyone had a lot to talk about, and we had a lot in common. I had a really lovely person that I reported into called Victoria Pattinson, who's also just so calm and charming. And I thought, gosh, this is what a nice team. And I think I'd got to that point where I'd done all of the agency shoots I was going to go on. I'd got to a level of seniority where it was important to be sending other people on those things, and to give them the opportunity. And so I thought, well, this is a sort of tipping point moment in my career. Either I take a risk and go for something in a new area, into tech, rather than staying in advertising and marketing. I'd run client side a few times, and then I was sort of advertising again. And I just thought I could do the obvious thing and stay and just hope that I climb the ladder, fast or slow, doesn't really matter. Eventually you get there. Or I could take a risk and go and learn something completely fresh. Why not? And actually, it was that sort of persuaded me. It was the people first, really, and then the task looked so enormous. I just thought, well, I'm not going to get bored. There's infinite amount of work that needs to be done. I think someone on the team, it might have been Peter Weinberg, said, we're writing the textbook for B2B marketing that doesn't exist. And that's pretty much what we've pursued as a team ever since, which is like, what is the next thing that you would need to know, that you would need a big piece of research on, but no specific company can afford to do that for their own industry or their own company. we can accumulate that, write the chapter and publish it, and then move on to the next one and on to the next one.
So I worked for a B2C company where brands just, you know, it's a 50-year-old bricks and mortar retailer just considered Fugazi. They remember when they put a press ad in on Tuesday and footfall went up on a Saturday. With B2B brands, between marketers and everything, creativity sounds great. Yeah. It sounds interesting, and we can mention, you know, the statistics that 95% of people in B2B aren't ready to buy, 5% are. You should be focusing on the 95. I'm seeing a lot more tech companies, B2B companies doing exciting and interesting awareness level content. But as they're all doing it, these, you know yourself, these things take time. One big creative awareness ad isn't going to, a lot of marketers in-house, whatever, will be having conversations with the CFO and the MD trying to convince them to do it. They'll run the advert and it won't show immediate ROI. For marketers or anyone within a business who's trying to explain this to, you know, the C-suite, what advice could you give them to be like, how do you explain that journey, the process, with everything you've seen in the last 6-7 years?
Yeah.
At the B2B Institute?
Yeah, and before that I worked on B2B campaigns, but I'd also say every B2C business is a B2B business. You always work with other businesses. You need, if you're selling anything, you have to work with retailers. You know, you're constantly in a B2B relationship as well as a B2C relationship. But what I see from what we've learned is a few things. One is you have to know your frequency of purchase, because everything around your results and your measurement comes from how often people buy. In B2B, it's essential. And it's an average of about 18 to 36 months in B2B. So that's a very broad stretch, isn't it? A year and a half. But you've got to, through that, understand your window of opportunity and that it's a rolling feast. So we're measured on results normally, most businesses now, on a quarterly sales basis. So what is your reasonable expectation of sales in a quarter? And how many people within that window of expectation can have possibly seen the ad to be able to be impacted and to achieve the uplift? So I think the first question is a media and audience question, and it's always linked to start with sales. But I wouldn't start with sales and stay with sales, because you also need to look at how well you've impacted your category to create your opportunity for next quarter and the quarter after that and the rolling quarters as you go. And so through that, we look at, we talk about the 95-5 rule as the B2B Institute. Hopefully everyone's seen it. And if not, there's a paper, download it. It's a very easy diagram.
We'll put the link in the episode description.
Yeah, it's a very easy diagram. 5% is this quarter, 95% is your future quarters. But if you proportion your expectation according to those quarters, then you also need to proportion your reach into those future quarters, because that's your awareness job. Is you're going to convert, ideally, people within the current quarter, but most of those people have made up their decision already. There's the day one list paper that we talk about a lot. So as people come into a buying situation, the brand that's first to mind tends to be the one they buy. About 80% of purchases go to the first brand everyone thinks of, in B2C actually, as well as in B2B. And that's because there's this availability heuristic where psychologically we believe that they must be the best because I thought of them first. Our job as marketers is to be thought of first. Simplify your job to that one thing, and it makes your job a lot easier. But it also makes it a lot easier for your FD to understand. Our job is to be thought of first. If we're not in the minds of customers, our future customers, when they come into a buying situation, we have an uphill struggle because we're competing with the brand they thought of first for the next 3 months, and then the purchase is gone. It's not coming back for another 18 to 36 months. So that idea of prioritizing awareness and prioritizing being thought of in that buying situation, I think then simplifies what we have to do, is create memories, be memorable, have advertising. Creativity requires memorability, and it requires impact and to be easy to remember. That then affects how you brief. enormously affects how you brief. Because if you're briefing for memorability, you're not going to brief a whole list of attributes around your product, because that's really hard to remember. I can't remember my shopping list. I have to write it down. Most people wouldn't be able to remember a whole lot of product attributes, and they're very hard to compete on because quite a few are exactly the same as your competitors. Really then understanding that in B2B, to be remembered, you need to be a bit iconic. You need to be a bit famous. You need to be, you can use all the attributes of brand, emotion, personality, storytelling, relatability. But you also need to have that attribute of standing out, disrupting your category, or at least having something different to be able to hang your brand hat on, to that hook that means that your brand name is even remembered. I think all of those things really simplify our job, but also what we've been able to do at the B2B Institute is produce the research that helps prioritise that, but also helps to explain that within the business. Because marketers often experienced marketers intuitively know all the stuff without having to ever write it down. And I trust that intuition of experience. But we also need to be able to steal the slides and show them within our own organisations, because managing stakeholders is probably the bigger job in marketing. And being able to do that with evidence that a team like ours is able to provide, I think is truly useful. It gives me a sense of purpose in my job, because I feel like it's actually helping marketers to protect their businesses by doing marketing. And that's the other thing we've been able to show. It's like, actually, the value of marketing isn't just in sales. It's about resilience. It's about having customers for the future. It's about feeding sales with opportunities. And it's also about being able to understand how you're going to project as a business into that 5-year plan, into the long-term health and survival of a company. And that's quite a lot for someone to say, oh, marketing, we're not, well, hopefully someone, maybe marketing will cure world hunger and disease and war, but like, it's certainly creating economic resilience in businesses. And we feel the impact of that all the time in hopefully well-marketed companies offer more job security.
I want to test or just play around with both of those sides of your brain we've covered, because I like what you've said about B2B businesses and some businesses in general having to think long-term, and marketers in particular. And you've obviously been in the academic research world for quite a bit. Let's say you've gone back, a giant, great B2B business has poached you, and I'm a very benevolent CFO. I've seen the content and the research. I've given you, let's call it a semi-unlimited budget to come up with a 5-year marketing plan to make us like a category leader. What's the steps you'd take to do that?
I think I'd probably start with the total audience, like understand what my category audience really looks like. And I'd do quite a lot of research into the need states of that audience. So what are the tipping point moments that means that we're being bought? And I'd sort of match that audience to be able to reach them. So I'd start off with media, weirdly, not that weirdly, but I'd start off with really understanding where everyone was. And I'd probably hack geographies quite carefully to understand physically where they were as well. So I knew what my distribution was going to be like. So I'd start off very much about like, in the legal side of me would draw the map and work out like where I'm playing. And then I'd size it. I'd look at the value of transactions that I could see over the long term, over the 5 years, to just understand like where's the money. Because I think that's the strongest conversation. That's the most persuasive conversation I'm going to have within the business, which is how frequently do people buy what we're able to sell them, against which needs, and how often do they have those needs.
Is this based on as simple as demographics or even deeper?
B2B people don't buy based on their age or their gender. They or their class. They tend to buy based on their role and their expertise in some cases. or their business's needs. And so I look at the sort of industry needs and businesses. But against that, you can start putting dollar signs against your priorities. And I think then I would take a step back and go, okay, who are we? What is our core role as a business? What's my fabulous colleague Mimi Turner calls it promise. What's the promise I'm making as a business? Why do we exist in the first place for our customers? And I think I would create a red string across everything that we're answering, all those needs that we're answering, against those business needs and our identity, because I think that's a unique formula for a business to be able to market itself. And then I'd find my best, most talented creative friend and get them to help me write a line or a positioning that would mean that I can, and I mean a creative positioning rather than a customer positioning, two very different disciplines, but I'd write some kind of statement that would mean that any advertising I put together had an identity, had a recognizability that was uniquely ours. And that involves, you've got to go and interview the chairman. You've got to go and talk to and understand the business quite well if you're going to start writing stuff like that. And then as quickly as possible, I would go to market, because I just don't think it's worth fanning around doing anything else. You need to get advertising because every moment you lose, your competitor gains to gain market share. And so I feel like urgency is one of the superpowers of a marketer, is having a sense of getting it done yesterday, finding the best possible moment. There are seasonalities to some industries. The financial industry has very obvious seasonalities around year end, but getting in first, if you think about this, 3-month window for when a business B2B decision purchase is actually evaluated and made, then I want to be the very first brand to mind in all of those decisions. So having a sense of urgency, having a sense of presence would be how I'd put my campaign together. And then the other thing is recency is king. So I would be wanting to make sure that we knew how we were going to be always on, how we were going to stretch that marketing so it's as even as possible, recognizing some kind of uplift in the short term around any seasonality. You want to make sure that you're still mentally present. You're not having to recover from silence. So yeah, I think that would be my other major priority, is just get it out there, make it good, make it right, get it out there, and learn fast. Really, if you need to test stuff, do it fast. Get it. The testing materials don't have to be perfect. You have to be able to work out where the inspiration is, where's the value in an idea, but you really have to get it out there.
I love it, Jen. That's a B2B marketing masterclass for people right there.
I'm sure it could be torn apart by my many illustrious colleagues, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, and they've got to test their version, you test yours, and whoever gets out first wins. So with something you think a lot on, and we covered it a bit there as well, was brand building. And we know a lot of businesses, performance marketing's huge, the long and the short, to throw out the great old terms. Why do you think brand matters so much? When a lot of C-suites made it's fluffy, it's whatever.
Some brand marketing, this is very controversial, some brand marketing deserves to be called fluffy. And it makes me rage that some brand marketing even gets run because it just seems like vanity marketing. People are just they may as well just be running a logo for all that it says that's going to make a difference for the business. I think there has to be a real discipline to brand marketing, and brand marketers know they need to earn the respect of their company. And the way to do it is to have a huge amount of discipline around representing your company, not just representing, the mood of the times. There's a really clear version of it, which is there's brand marketing that may as well be a mood board or a mood reel, where it's saying everything about the category and nothing about your brand. And so the discipline of brand marketing deserves, sort of body checking. Just make sure it's right. ABM or performance marketing, it's it's a superpower. If you get it right, you're going to do so well this quarter because it's about capturing latent demand in the category. And so depending on the amount of demand in the category, that's going to go up and down based on the wider context, based on the economy, really. And I don't feel safe just gambling on the wider health of the economy in any situation, but especially perhaps right now when there is a huge amount of fluctuation socioeconomically. There's just a huge amount going on. Chaos, one might call it. But chaos that we can navigate. As marketers, we're not living in the broader political chaos. We can toe our line and remain pretty healthy. And we need to, actually, B2B businesses in particular need to, I think, at the moment, create more stability. We need to have some economic health, and it's our opportunity to do that well. Will protect our businesses and the employees of those businesses. But I do think it's quite interesting. The two have to work together. You can't not capture sales this quarter. That would be idiotic. But you can't also not be a brand. You have to be a brand if you're fighting against being commoditized. Search is a great example of where it can go horribly wrong. If you're spending all of your money on search engine optimization, you're fighting over the equivalent of your trolley getting to the cashier's desk at Lidl and asking people to just throw your product in from the bargain bin. You're at a point where a purchase decision has kind of been made. You're fighting over the odds and ends of how you're evaluated. It's come down to price, guys. Once you're in the SEO world, it's come down to price rather than preference. Brand marketers get in way before that. They get in at branded search. They get in at the point where people are seeking you out. And that's an enormously powerful position to put your business in, because you can start defining your price. You start defining the terms of the category by which you're being evaluated. That's so powerful as a business, because you can totally redefine the category if you want to. You can start inventing new terminology. You can start measuring preference that you've created for your business and reporting that into the finance team and the sales team. And so, we really need to be seeing that as an effect rather than a cause. And we also need to be investing in really good brand marketing, because it's driving what you're recognized for. It's driving your memorability or why you are first to mind. And I would say that is the gold standard of brand, which is you're thought of at the right times. You're thought of in a buying situation or in a moment where your brand needs to be recalled. And when you're briefing advertising, that's what you should be briefing for brand. You're not briefing for an association with golf, or an association with a footballer, or all of those other, that's a job for sales. If you're sponsoring, this is quite controversial, but if you're sponsoring a football team, that's very, very valuable for your sales team. They can take prospects to the matches. There's a level of fame and glamour that comes with that, which is great. But if people see that logo running around on a footballer and don't know what you do, you've missed your opportunity. They need to know what you do, and brand marketing needs to be attached to that. And I see often there's a detachment, and that's when marketing isn't taken seriously.
Great insights, Jen. Thank you. So you've had a great career in lots of different parts of the world, lots of different industries, lots of lessons picked up over those years, I'm sure. But if there was one that stuck with you and you'd almost say it's your cornerstone, what do you think that would be?
I actually think I'm probably only midway through my career. So I've still got a long way to go. But I think that is probably the cornerstone of it, which is I can always see where there's more to be done, and I've got to work harder, and I'm motivated to work harder because there are still really interesting problems that need fixing or need understanding. And as long as there are those they're not problems, they're opportunities, but as long as there are those interesting opportunities out there, then I feel like I'm needed and I'm useful. And that's what I value in myself, to be useful, to have something to be able to offer into the situation that can improve it. And actually, I love the relief that gives everyone else as well. Like, I like the fact that I've always been able to, throughout my career, I've been put in these really lovely positions where you kind of walk in a room and it's like, we've got this big problem, and it's like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. What about this idea? We all solve those problems together, or discover the opportunities together. But that ability to sort of switch context, or switch into a new opportunity, or into to something that can grow again. I think that's the bit that I see as like my opportunity for the future, and what I can offer the industry for the future.
And is that some advice you offer people who come to you for mentorship? It's solve problems, make yourself useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Solve problems, make yourself useful, and enjoy it. It's not a burden. There are big burdens in the world. You can open the door and find them, but we're in marketing. It's never a problem. It's always like, what is the next opportunity and the next opportunity, and you're not going to run out of ideas. I think that's the greatest gift in advertising, is the reassurance, and marketing is the reassurance that ideas aren't like pie. You don't eat up all the slices. There just are more ideas. That's the wonderful ingenuity of the human brain. But also it's what makes it a really joyful thing to work in, that creativity isn't just the artwork on the page, but it's in every single opportunity and interaction and solution. And in the more we study, actually, the more we can innovate and the more we can create. It's not about data, isn't about tying you down. It's about actually finding more inspiration.
I love it. Jen, that's a great note to end on. For anyone who wants to follow the journey, look at the research papers, can you direct them where they should go?
Yeah, b2binstitute.org. Or obviously, there's this amazing social platform called LinkedIn, and all of the stuff is on the LinkedIn B2B Institute page.
Perfect. Jen, thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.